What's up, moviegoers and true believers? Welcome to another episode of the Real Comics Podcast. I am your host, Voodoo57, and with me, as always, this evening is my good friend Speedy G. Speedy G, what's up?
What is up, everybody? How we doing tonight? Hope everyone's having a good night.
I think it's a pretty good night. We got a lot to talk about this episode. We've got news, we've got Star Wars stuff, we've got comic book stuff, and of course, our big review of X-Men Apocalypse. But let's get it kicked off with some news. Speedy G, I know it seems like we're going kind of fast and furious here, but we've got some breaking news in the comic book superhero / movie industry, whatever you want to call it. Why don't you bust out the topic?
I'm going to say about maybe 5:30 our time here. That'll be out here on the West. The story first broke on Variety that it looks like Brie Larson is in talks to play Miss Marvel. It makes some sense. Since then, everybody's talked about it. I watched the Periscope with El Mayambe, who broke this story a while ago. And he's like feeling really vindicated because, like, see, I told you guys. And he had a lot to say that made sense on why they picked her. Marvel's notorious, Feige's notorious for picking people that are hot. They're young, they're hot, and they're happening right now. And he likes to lock, and that's what Brie Larson is. So I get the pick. When I first saw the pick, I didn't necessarily like it. I put it on our Twitter, I called it a meh, because she doesn't seem like Miss Marvel to me. And I don't know how much you know about Miss Marvel, but she is a major in the United States Air Force. So I'm thinking a career military woman. And Brie Larson to me is kind of a little bit of the girl next door. She's kind of sweet. She's really happy and friendly. I know. I'm casting. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm typecasting her, which isn't fair. She's done other things.
You're absolutely right. The reason I'm laughing right now, and I gotta say this, is that cat just jumped up and scared the crap out of me. So I didn't mean to change the topic, but you're right. Yeah, definitely girl next door. Keep going.
What I thought though is I started thinking about more and more but she does fit what Marvel does now, because even though Miss Marvel in the comics is this very strong, almost like military woman, Brie Larson has comedic chops. She's very approachable. She's very friendly. She looks great on the screen. She will mesh well with the Chris Evans, with the jokiness of a Rudd, the jokiness of a Tom Holland. So they're going to want a little bit of jokes because that's just the way Marvel does their thing, and she can deliver that. She has that comedic timing as well. So it does make sense. Even though it doesn't seem like the comic to me, it makes complete sense. And then the fact that she is an it actress right now, she's the right age. They can sign up for multiple movies. Works great.
My opinion is I think it's a great choice. I really didn't have a meh feeling when you told me right away later this evening while I was out at my daughter's softball practice. I was like, wow, this is actually, I think, a solid get, because she does have that kind of comedic background, those chops that she's had. So from an entertainment standpoint, I do believe she can stand toe-to-toe with a Paul Rudd, or even with this kid as the new Spidey, or however they plan on doing this.
Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. Exactly. So I think she's going to be a great choice. Let's face it, we're going to talk about this here in a little bit, but Marvel continues to get it right, okay? And they do. This choice is solid.
Yeah, for their universe, again. Now, if I think about it for because when everyone was fan casting Miss Marvel, a lot of the actresses everyone was throwing around, Emily Blunt, Katie Stackpole, the girl that's on Vikings, they were going for tough badasses. That's what everyone was casting, and you don't think Brie Larson tough badass. And I get that because that's what the character is. But when you actually think about it, like you said, she is going to fit the way they do storytelling.
Right.
So.
Yeah, definitely. I get the tough badass part. Wasn't it Ronda Rousey just a few short months ago who was really trying to push her? I know, but she was really trying to push for that part. So
you've got to be able to act. I mean, people knock these movies, because they are kind of simplistic in certain ways, and there's a lot of ha-ha jokes. But there's some comedic timing. They have to come out somehow, get drama out of this while they're dressed up in ridiculous suits. Let's be honest. We love them as comic book fans, but it's pretty ridiculous. Like, okay, I'm dressed up in this get up and I've got to kind of look serious. You can't be someone who didn't act. And just because Rousey has a look, that reminds me of the old X-Men's. Like, remember they cast a wrestler as Sabretooth.
Right.
And he did nothing. Yeah, he had the look, but he can't act. And Rousey has to learn how to act before she can be a major character like Miss Marvel.
No, agreed. I just thought from a badass standpoint, I thought that was kind of interesting that did at least fit the character, but that was about it, nothing more.
Yeah.
So very cool. Yeah, definitely breaking news. Let's see. Also, in the news front, we've got some news from the world of Marvel still. Let's talk a little bit about Planet Hulk. What do you got for us, BDG?
We are hearing that some form or fashion, they're going to adapt parts of Planet Hulk into this new Thor Ragnarok movie, which will be pretty cool because we've known for a while that that Hulk was coming into the movie, but we didn't know how. So the synopsis that they've kind of said, now nobody knows if this is exactly true, but is that Thor is kind of kicked off his world. And he lands on this other planet. And on this planet, he's forced to fight in these gladiatorial games. And as he fights his way up the ranks, it's time to face the champion, who is the Hulk. And that's a big thing of Planet Hulk. And so I think they're going to incorporate the gladiator games of the Planet Hulk series, but not the whole part of it. But I just think it's an awesome way. And eventually they're going to have to team up, of course, and they'll probably fight their way off the planet and just if it has that gladiator feel, it'll be a lot of fun to see those two throw hooks,
this is something that if it follows this pattern that we're hearing, I'm super excited because the Thor movies are my least favorite. They haven't necessarily provided that solidified punch. The first one was okay. The second one was.
They need to keep him off Earth.
Yeah.
That's the key to those movies working for him. The only time he should be on Earth is when he's with the Avengers. In other words, let's keep him off Earth so that he can fight beings that are just as strong as him so we can show him in his full glory.
No,
they nerf him. They nerf him when he gets to Earth because he's so powerful. They have to.
Yeah, I completely agree. Definitely. So this ought to be an interesting move. I hope this all comes to fruition. And like I said, remains to be seen very shortly. Cool. I did want to bring up real quick as we're doing the news also. There was we didn't really get a chance to talk about it. I believe it was last week. They released a trailer for Assassin's Creed, or at least I did bring it up. It seemed very interesting and we discussed it. But what's coming out right now are a lot of the photos from the set and the costumes that the various assassins in this movie are wearing. And they've hit the internet with a flame and a buzz. Now, I know this doesn't necessarily touch your little corner of the superhero world, but what I find interesting is that the cosplayers are already trying to be the first cosplayers to wear these costumes. How do you feel about the fact that when these photos of the costuming get leaked, that the cosplayers are quick to jump on them and quick to get them into Comic-Cons and trying to be the first people to portray them or cosplay them out in the Comic-Con industry? What do you think about that?
Oh, I think it's great. I mean, it's not like there hasn't been Assassin's Creed Enzo type characters anyway. Right. But now they've found another one to make. They're going to try to make the movie specific one. So I think it's neat. It's great pub for the movie. I'm telling you, by the time San Diego Comic-Con hits, they're going to be everywhere.
I wouldn't be surprised if parkour guys dressed like Assassin's Creed assassins were jumping around all over the place in San Diego.
Yeah, I like the trailer a lot too because I think it has a chance to be the first really good video game movie. Yeah. Warcraft is getting mixed reviews. Things I've heard is that, it's got problems. The orcs are really cool. The humans aren't as cool. The older wizard is cool. The younger wizard's kind of dumb. Little things like that. But that the world that it's built in looks very interesting, and therefore there's a good place for it to grow, and it can become something. And what I am praying that happens in Warcraft is it does okay numbers in the United States because it's got a lot of competition, but it just kills in China because they are WoW fanatics over there in China.
Oh yeah,
they're all playing WoW, so that market may be there, and they make so much money, kind of like, say, a Transformers or some of these other movies that you saw. A Terminator went over there, did nothing in the States, and just blew up over there. And it justifies another and hopefully a better movie. because I've heard good things about the works. So
yeah, very interesting. Cool. What else do you think we might have here on the news front?
Not much else. On Friday quiet. There was that. It was announced that Miles Morales is going to be the focus of the animated Spider-Man movie. The new animated Spider-Man movie that's going to come out is not going to be Peter Parker. It's going to be the first time we're going to go with someone else, and it'll be Miles. So that's kind of interesting.
Busting out Miles for the animated side of the superhero movies. I don't know. I got to check out these animated sides more often. I know you've been telling me to check out a whole bunch of DC stuff.
First. DC is 100 times better. The Marvel ones are a little kiddie. They suffer from some other problems too. The Marvel ones are much better. Plus, you're an anime fan. A lot of them are drawn. They can see there's some anime influence in a lot of the different ones. Just yesterday, bored, I watched Dark Knight Part 1 and Dark Knight Part 2, the animated. God, I forgot how good they are. And, just to see that old school story, that different telling that Frank Miller tells. Right. Robin, Superman being a crony for the government, all that stuff. It was fun to see those again. But yeah, they're so good.
For sure, definitely. All right, cool. Do you think we're ready to head into our Star Wars minutes, yes, or should definitely. I say a few minutes? Cool. So we have a big story, but before I break the big story, I have something minor I want to bring up real quickly, because I shot this video over to my middle son, and he loves it like crazy. And I'll try and get the link posted in our video, in our YouTube video here when we're done. This is a video to a little TIE fighter battle that somebody took and made on their own in a Japanese anime style. It's a few minutes long. It's nothing tremendously long. But the animation in this thing is incredible. Now, he's been releasing parts, bits and pieces here and there, but it's been completed. It may have been completed for a little while, but I may have forgotten about it. But I came across it recently, and I want to put that out there. If you're an anime fan and you're a Star Wars fan, this thing is amazing. You have to check it out. I've got some of my Star Wars buddies freaking out over it right now. I'll put the link down below at the end of our podcast, and that way you guys can check it out. Okay. Have you seen this at all?
No, I have not.
I'll send it to you later. It's pretty freaking amazing that this person made it all on their own, all at home, and it's every character has that anime look, that typical different hairstyle, the color of hair, the way that the ships are drawn are still Star Wars, but of course, as the lasers come off and the missiles fly, it's pure anime. It's amazing. It's pretty damn amazing. This guy, if he's not working with somebody in the real world, he should be. That's for sure. Cool. All right. Well, let's get to the one and major only Star Wars story that we've got circulating the internet the past couple of days, and that is this huge, tremendous controversy about the Rogue One reshoots. These have come from Page Six, which is a variety style kind of magazine. And let's delve into this. What do you think about these massive, expensive reshoots that they're telling us about, that there may or may not be problems? This kind of is a Star Wars moment, and this could also be bullshit story of the week. I'm kind of confused on which side to take. What do you say, Speedy G33? What are your thoughts?
No, I want to defer to you. You're the Star Wars guy. So first, I really need to hear your thoughts on it, and then I'll throw in mine, because I think this hits home a little harder for you.
Yeah, it definitely does. So for me, obviously, I want to stand up and go, hey, reshoots happen all the time. They really do. We know people are freaking out whenever they hear the term and the word reshoots. You and I have discussed this before. Since the Fantastic Four crap fest, and when that was mentioned, now whenever you hear the word reshoot, people freak out. And the movie industry freaks out. And the people backing these movie industries are freaking out. Who's making these decisions? Why are they so massive? What are they trying to do? And so my initial thought is to, hey, hang on, let's just see exactly what it is. But clearly the one common denominator that makes me a little nervous is that the Disney execs don't like what they have so far. In the articles that I've read, they might feel that the movie, unfortunately, to them, is a bit too militaristic. Now, you know me, I'm very military movie minded. I love these movies, Band of Brothers. We just came off of Memorial Day. I watched Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan. We even tried to maybe put together a top 5 real quick, and there's just so many we couldn't do it. And so that's my initial thought. My initial thought is I'm still I'm not nervous, but I'm curious. That would be the word that I would use. So what do you say?
Gotcha. Well, I've read an updated article, since you've probably read those, and one thing that article debunked is that nobody has seen this. They haven't shown a screening to the public. So that the fact that the public didn't like it or the screenings weren't doing well, that's bullshit. That was a lie, because that is not true. According to the studio has said that. But they're not, it's softened from we don't like it to kind of like we think it's too much like a war film and it doesn't fit our vision for a Star Wars film. Now, as I told you, what that means could be is there are some bad things about it being a Disney movie. You know, we just talked about how they're going to make a different kind of Miss Marvel.
Right.
Disney has a vision that includes the littlest kid, the oldest man. They want it to include everybody to like this. So if it is too, maybe like you say, Saving Private Ryan, they're running through, you know, AT-ATs and people are getting blown to smithereens like, you know, a beach landing. And they're like, no, we're not doing it. To you and me, that's what we want. Because right. I haven't 100% been on board with Rogue One anyway. I don't want a prequel, okay? I don't want to go backwards. I don't want a prequel. I'm not even as big of a fan of the Han Solo movie. I'm still kind of like, do I really want to see a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford?
Exactly.
I'm more about the new movies. I want to see after Jedi. I don't want to see before. So I'm going to see it. I mean, to sit here and tell you I'm not going to see it is a big-ass lie. I'm going to see it, but I was already kind of worried, and this was my worry, that I liked the idea if they could tell different stories, but I don't like the idea if this just becomes a let's show off Darth Vader and Han Solo show. You know what I mean? Like a young right. Han Solo and Darth Vader. So
yeah, I hear what you're saying, and different stories we're going to get if we get these supposed stories later on down the road of, you know, what was Boba Fett doing? You know, what was Han Solo doing?
See,
those are the stories I think you're going to get what you want. But this particular story, yeah, but you might. No, and you're definitely going to.
That's why, to me, this is the most important one, because this one proves to the Disney execs that we can have a story that isn't about teenager Princess Leia and young Boba Fett. Because if that's all we get from these, quote, you know, Star Wars stories are just young Princess Leia, young Boba Fett, young Obi-Wan, they're going to really lose their magic fast. I want stories that are like this. Some right. character that we
I get
don't
what
know.
You're saying, but unfortunately, the bigger part of the world is, this is where we're going to kind of agree to disagree a little bit. These people are too close to the situations that they've provided. Listen, Rogue One, I would be shocked if it didn't have Vader in it. Let's almost mark that as a guarantee. Nobody knows for sure. It's going to have to.
With that, but it doesn't need Han Solo.
True, but if they put that in there, maybe it's a tease. What if it's at the end? Would it be okay with you if it's at the end credits as a half teaser or something silly like that?
I'd like them to cross paths in a bar, and maybe he looks at her or winks at her or like makes a play, or she bumps into Chewie.
That's what I think.
Don't get a Wookiee mad. Something simple. That's all.
I think that's all you're going to get. I think if it exists, which I doubt that will. I doubt that. My honest opinion is I doubt we're going to get it because they've cast him, but that we're going to get a young Han Solo.
Well, see, one of the other theories about these reshoots is it's similar to the movie we're about to review. Is the reason they're going back in is to film a bunch of Han Solo stuff, like they put Wolverine into X-Men. They want to put some Han Solo in. So
gotcha. No, definitely. You know, this is going to be debated and argued, and we won't know until the final product comes out. Yeah. That's for sure.
I don't think it's in trouble, though. It's not.
No, I think that's the one thing we can agree on, that it isn't in trouble. These are common. People need to relax. They need to calm down. It's not as if people, you know, what happened with the Fantastic Four was so much more different. It wasn't just about the reshoots. There was complaining from the crew and the staff. There was complaining from some of the actors, even the side actors. It was much more deeper on a much more deeper level. They're just talking about reshoots here.
And you know what? They actually do change stuff because maybe they do see a problem. And that isn't something that's uncommon either. And they see a problem and they fix it, and we're the better off for it when we see the actual movie.
Very true. Very true. I agree. Anyway, cool. That was the big Star Wars major news for the day. But we do have something else we definitely want to talk about this evening, and that's a little bit on the comic side now that we've covered a lot of the superhero side. So Speedy G, the floor is yours. Take it away. What do you got?
We're going to try to talk about comics a little bit every once in a while. You know, Wednesday is the night we tend to do our podcast. Not always, but we do. And Wednesday is also New Comic Book Day. Today I picked up some great comics. A lot of the new DC Rebirth, man. I'm really liked the Green Arrow comic, for example. But I'm not going to talk about those today because I really wanted to talk about something that happened last week. And this was this new, if you can kind of see it on my phone, it's called Comixology. Is a site where you can buy digital comics. And they offered a service, now for $5.99, something new that it's called Unlimited Comics. Okay, it's not every title, but it's a lot of titles. And you just pay the monthly service, kind of like Netflix, and you can read all these titles.
Wow.
And what tends to happen is they're trades, which you get to read. So that's usually 6 comics put together in one book. So you get a nice introduction to all these new comics you wouldn't normally read. Now, it doesn't have the big 2. It doesn't have DC, and it doesn't have Marvel. Marvel has their own thing you can get unlimited, and DC doesn't have anything of that nature yet. But what's really cool is just like Netflix, you can go explore. You can read stuff you would not normally buy in the shop because you're too scared to buy. You're like, oh, you know what? I only have $30. I don't want to take a chance on that one or that one that I've never heard of. And so you never learn about these new comics. This is a great way, and right now it's a free month too. So you can also do it for free for a month and then cancel it even. And so you can read all these great new comics. Some titles that are in there, for example, Walking Dead, Scott Pilgrim, Hellboy. There's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's Archie. There's some really cool independent stuff. There's a lot of anime. There's what is it called? The Titans. Is that what it's called? The
Attack on Titan.
Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
I'm reading Lone Wolf and the Cub, whatever. I'm reading that right now. There's some great stuff on there.
Wow.
And it's a great way to get you into comics. And then you can buy the next issues on this for a reasonable price. Or you can do what I do, I go into the comic shop and find things. So I'm discovering some new titles myself even. So it's a great way for someone to get in comics. I know the comic book shop can be a little intimidating, and you don't want to go in there and say like, well, I want to try something different, but I don't want to look like a dork and ask somebody, and then they'll say, dude, why don't you know this comic? This is the greatest comic ever. You know what I mean? You can discover what you like and go in there with confidence and buy what you want. So I think it's a great way to just sell more comics. So, and that's always a good thing.
That is awesome. That is definitely perfect for beginners, for parents who want to teach their kids and get them reading. A lot of kids nowadays have iPads and mini pads, whatever the hell they have.
Yeah, it works on your phone, your iPad, any type of device. It works on your computer. What's really great is you can download up to 50 titles. So you can download them at home on your Wi-Fi, and you have them with you when you're on a long trip or you're somewhere that you don't have internet access. You have those comics, and you can pull them up and read them. So, yeah, it's a great way. And they have a lot of kids' titles. There's a lot of children's titles as well.
That is an awesome little product. It sounds like something we're going to have to keep an eye on, see how much you actually. So how long have you been, wait, real quick, how long have you been
I've
using
had it for, last week I think it debuted, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. I've read about 10 graphic novels.
Wow.
You know, so it's really cool.
Definitely worth it if you're at least reading 10 of them. That's for sure.
Yeah. And that's with me reading all my other comics and stuff. So
Right.
I could have read more, but.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, anything else more on the comic book news side?
No, just like I said, the Rebirth is excellent. That this new thing with the Green Arrow one is good. It's back to who Green Arrow is, because Green Arrow's kind of gotten twisted because of the television show, which I'm a fan of. Before you guys all start hating on me, I do like the show, but it's more like Batman Light, Nolan Batman Light, where the Green Arrow comic is true the character of Green Arrows, and it's really good.
Good save there, Speedy. Very cool. All right, everybody. That's going to cover most of our news. There is something that we do want to discuss a little bit. That's kind of, there's no section for it. There's no segment for it. It's just kind of a topic we want to get into. before we get into our review of X-Men Apocalypse. And Speedy G, I kind of want you to lead us into it. You and I had about a 30, 40 minute long conversation, and we didn't touch on everything because we knew we were going to discuss it tonight. And it's really important that people understand what they do when they start spewing what we call, fandom. Fandom in maniac form, fandom in several forms, just nerd fandom to one side or the other, and how much it hurts the medium of entertainment to begin with. What are your general thoughts on it? Where should we start discussing this thing? Go ahead and kick
Well, we should start with the article that kind of sparked this discussion. Devin Farsi wrote an article recently about fandom on Bleeding Cool, and I'll put the link. If you haven't read it, I'd be shocked if you haven't, if you're a fan of this genre. But I'll put it down there. And he just talked about fandom, and it's things that you and I have kind of talked about, things we've both thought about, I'm sure, and just how it's kind of gotten out of control. I mean, it's been there. His article does a good job of explaining that it's always been there, and he uses the movie, the Stephen King story, Misery, as kind of an example of a fan that's kind of off the rails. The thing is, now with this social media and your instant access to these people, it has lost its mind and gone off its rails. We've had this, the Captain America story with him, being something, in the comics. And then, we've had these stories about trying to, get Elsa a girlfriend, the Ghostbusters thing. There's just been a lot of attacks on the creators. And people are justifying it on the fact that they're fans and that this property belongs to them. And they're not allowing creators to create. It's like they're making demands. They're not saying, this is what I would like to see. This is what I want to see, and I demand I see. And if you don't give it to me, I'm going to badger you, attack you, and even possibly make a death threat to you.
Right.
Over a comic, a movie, a TV show. Even Stephen Amell came out. I don't know if you saw that, because the woman who plays Canary and the woman who plays Felicity constantly get attacked by teen girls who want one or the other to be his girlfriend on the TV show. They attack the actress for a fictional character.
Right. This is the unnerving power of the internet, which drives me insane. And to put it in its simplest terms, the internet has become something people use more of a sledgehammer as a way, let's face it, it used to be to say, hey, check out my food I'm having for dinner. Or, hey, look who I'm hanging with, my buddy or my kids over here. Now it's become this, I'm such a fan of this particular genre that if you don't treat it right, not only am I going to let you know, I'm going to threaten you with banning your product. I'm going to threaten you with your life. I'm going to threaten everything. You brought it up, the Ghostbusters. Let's face it. Let's start with this really quickly. The new female all-female cast Ghostbusters currently has the worst rated video on YouTube for their first trailer. And a lot of it is simply because they're females. Now, let me just state for myself personally, I'm uninterested in this movie. It's a classic I don't think should be touched, but it has nothing to do with the fact that they're female. I just think it's maybe a poor movie and maybe not anything for me. But I didn't give it a thumbs down on the YouTube channel.
You don't spend all your social media time attacking it.
Exactly. So we've got this happening with every little thing. We've got this happening where people think that they're helping. They want Finn, from the character from The Force Awakens, to actually have a gay romantic relationship with Poe because of what they saw in the movie. Now, if it were to happen and they did it in the right way, I don't care. More power to them. But to force your opinion that it should happen is a whole other story. You touched on the Elsa thing.
Or Cap.
Or Elsa. Bucky or Cap or Elsa. Now you're forcing your personal, belief in relationships through the internet onto people instead of just allowing them to happen naturally. You know what I mean? Now, this person wants to say, well, I just put out the first comic with the first gay character in it. Well, great. Good for you. I'm glad you did it. But you know what? So what?
The Elsa one is interesting. I'm going to talk to the Elsa one because I have 4 daughters. Okay. Yeah. The beauty of that character is that it can be relatable to a gay young lady and it can be relatable to a straight young lady.
Exactly.
And the fact that it's ambiguous and we don't have to say it's one or the other, both of them can take something from that. And it's because it's a well-written, solid character. Why can't we just leave it at that? And everybody take their own thing from seeing it. And the same thing with the Bucky thing and the Poe thing. Why can't 2 guys just be best friends? When did it have to be that 2 guys that are best friends, they're automatically must be gay?
Exactly. And this isn't just about sexual preference. I mean, we could take this, and this goes over to what you touched on.
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson, that people are pissed off that she's the lead character or the lead in Ghost in the Shell, which should go to an Asian character. Yeah, that's how the story in the anime is done. But no, they chose this person instead. Same thing with the character in Doctor Strange. All the way to the comics. You brought that up just really quickly. Captain America did something in this little reboot of his, and people had a cow, and we don't even know where this is headed to begin with. He just said 2 words. And those 2 words caused the internet, and especially fan freaks, to freak out.
And even worse on that one, people with a political agenda. Because as much people as complained about that Cap thing, if that many people actually bought that Cap comic and read it, that'd be the best-selling comic in the history of Cap comics. But they didn't read it. They read a blurb, and they went to Twitter, and they just started attacking.
Agreed. So now that we've put this out there, what do you think? How is this going to affect everything? Do you think it'll get worse before it gets better? What are your general thoughts? Obviously, there's no cure for this. You can't change people's minds. We are living in an internet world where all people do is get on the internet to bitch and attack.
You know
something
what?
That they don't agree with.
The comics are interesting. I don't know how much it's going to change the comics. I think worst case scenario with the comics, if say the big 2, Marvel and DC, kind of cave to some of this nonsense, then all the good writers are going to go independent. They're going to go to the smaller, and we'll buy those. That's the great thing about comics. But I am concerned about the movies. There's a lot of money involved, and we've seen, the DC thing that's going on, the knee-jerk reactions with DC, like, okay, well, then we have to shove funny because people didn't like this, just based on, this, instead of really sit down looking at, okay, what was wrong with my movie? Was the problem with my movie that it wasn't funny, or the problem with my movie is that it was edited poorly? Things like that. Instead of like taking some real blame and looking in the mirror about the real problem, they make these knee-jerk reactions, and then when you have this crazy fandoms pushing one way or the other, then you get weird stuff. You know?
Exactly. And one last thing I want to bring to the table here is, and Speedy G, I want you to speak for yourself, because right now I'm going to speak for myself. It kind of came up. It was mentioned just very innocently last night, last night on our good friends over at the Movie Bears podcast. That I had chimed in with my own comment about the X-Men movie, and one of them had said, we're curious as to where you feel which is the better, Marvel versus, the X-Men franchise, or is it the DC franchise? And you know what? I'm a movie fan. I don't care. I don't have an allegiance towards any side, one or the other. Can you entertain me is the bottom line. When I give you my review, it's because this is my opinion, and I was or wasn't entertained.
Yeah.
Marvel tends to entertain me a bit more to my liking. It doesn't mean that I'm a Marvel fanboy. DC has failed several times because their movies didn't entertain me. It doesn't mean I hate them. It doesn't mean I hate that franchise. It doesn't mean I hate the characters and everything that they stand for. Fox has brought me up and let me down, brought me up. So it's all over the board. It's just how I'm feeling, and can you entertain me? And that's how my reviews go, and that's what I'm going to stand by. Speedy G, what's your own personal thought?
Well, that's how I am. And we've had this discussion just on other things, so I'm going to really fast because I don't want to go off on that tangent, but we talk about sports. Like, you'll call me, are you watching this football game? And I'm like, no, that football game's a piece of crap. I'm watching this soccer match. You like soccer better? No, I like the better sporting event at the moment.
Right.
Okay, I'm not going to watch one sport because it's my favorite or some bullshit. If it's a crap game, then I move on to the next thing. Life's too busy to watch crap. That's my approach with the movies. The comics, I bring a comic slant to everything, and I know that. But I read everything. Today, like I said, I'm bragging about the Rebirth, but I also bought Civil War 1, the new Civil War, and I bought a cool Deadpool comic that I enjoyed the shit out of. I read it all. And so when I go into these movies, I want something that's kind of like what the comic gives me the spirit. But if I don't get it, with the exception of that Fantastic Four mess, right, I don't go bonkers on it. So I try, and when we do these reviews, I try to look at it subjectively, like, okay, was it a good movie for the average person? And I give my score. And then we go into spoilers, and I'll kind of give you here's my problems with it as a comic book movie. But, you know, you can't, I don't know how to explain. You can't just lose your mind over these movies. And I know it happens, man.
It does.
Singer, we're about to go into, and that's why this is a good thing to talk about, because Singer makes me lose my mind with some of the choices he makes. Privately, I've had some rants with you over this guy, you know, some of the choices he makes.
Oh, yeah.
And at the same token, Snyder doesn't bug me as much, where some people lose their mind over Snyder, you know, so it's just a preference thing. And we should all be allowed to have our own opinions and our own preferences.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's the whole point of the internet. Have your opinion, but sometimes if it's going to be malicious and you're going to attack somebody, I would suggest you just keep it to yourself. Either that or start your own fan page and your own blog and bitch there. Because you know what?
There's nothing wrong with constructive.
Yeah, but it's got to be constructive. If you're out to just, that's why I specifically use the word malicious. If you're out to maliciously attack somebody, you're not being constructive or productive with what you have to say, then just keep it to yourself.
Yeah, I have great debates with people I don't agree with. I don't necessarily change my mind, but they're great debates, and I look at something from a different angle, and yeah.
Right, completely. Totally agree. All right, so, you know, if you have comments, if you have thoughts on this, and you're watching this and you catch this, put them in there. We want to hear what you guys have to say about fandom. I may post something a little bit later on Facebook to give a voice there. Speedy G, why don't you throw something up on the Twitter at some point today or tomorrow, and let's see what people are saying about this kind of topic. But I think it's something we should kind of pay attention to. Yeah. Cool?
It's supposed to be fun, guys.
It's supposed to be fun, so yeah, definitely. Let's have a little fun. Let's start right now with our review of X-Men Apocalypse. What do you say, Speedy G?
Ta-da!
All right, as always, everybody, do not forget, right now we are going to discuss and give our opinions of the movie and whether or not you think you should see it. Spoiler free here for the first few minutes. Then we will warn you and give you a pause, if you're listening or watching, to step away as we get heavy into spoilers about the things we liked and or disliked. Okay? Sounds good. Speedy G, the third attempt, well, what number attempt is this from Bryan Singer to bring an X-Men movie to the screen?
This is his fourth, technically. Yeah, this is his fourth movie.
This is,
even though he was kind of involved in Last Stand and in First Class, this is the fourth one he actually did.
For sure. So this is X-Men Apocalypse. We all know the returning characters and some new faces. I'm not going to get too deep into setup. I think we all know this one. Speedy G, you go ahead and you start us off with your general feelings about what you thought when we saw this movie. As a matter of fact, one of our first movies that we've seen together since we started the podcast, we watched this one together side by side. Shoot, go for it.
I had fun. I had fun. I laughed a lot. I was into the movie for the majority of the movie. Something happened in it that I don't want to get into spoilers that threw me out for a while. And then the ending kind of fell apart. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's a great movie. It has some incredible action pieces. It has some great moments. It's very comic-y. So as a comic book fan, they gave you what you wanted. So it's hard as a comic book fan to complain. It's like, okay, that's kind of wacky. Well, that's what you wanted. You've been complaining you wanted a comic book movie. This is a comic book movie. You know, some of the crazy things like destruction that is just after the other two that were like hammering it over your head. There's no people here. We're not hurting people. This one's like, fuck it. We're gonna blow people up. But
Yeah.
it was a good movie, and there's a lot of standout moments in it. You know, I really enjoyed it. There's Fassbender stands out. The young cast, the young X-Men stand out. Not so much the Horsemen, but the X-Men really stand out. Yeah, so that's what I'll say. I don't want to throw any of my negative out there yet.
No, we got time for that. So you would recommend people check this out?
I'd give it. I thought about it. I'd give it a 3.5, which kind of comes out to about a 7 or
out of
5. So that would come out to about a 7 or 70%, however you want to call it.
Gotcha.
Which is a very good movie. You know, that's about where I had Batman Superman. Maybe have it a touch higher than Batman Superman because I think it flowed better. Where Batman Superman had some moments where you're like, whoa. Like I'm going to say editing. It was maybe they had to cut stuff out, take things away. This seemed to kind of flow a lot better. I would give Civil War an 8.5, so I would put Civil War a whole 10 points higher than these guys.
Right.
It was a better put together movie. But,
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Here are my thoughts. I actually myself enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I did enjoy the previous two, First Class and Days of Future Past. So I don't know if that kind of had anything to do with it. I did enjoy a lot of the new cast. I liked the new Horsemen. Unfortunately, we'll talk about it more in spoilers. They didn't get a chance to shine enough, I don't think. But there were some good moments. But I think my buddy over at the Movie Bears podcast said it best, Will Lindis. He said, and I wish I would have thought about this because it's kind of how he said that this movie, X-Men Apocalypse, is right at that 50% mark of all comic book movies. He said that if you fall below that, then it's bad. If you can do above it, then it's good. But it was just good enough for him. I think it's a little more than that for me. You're right. I think I give it about a 3.5, very close to a 4, just shy of a 4, maybe a 3.58. I don't know. I don't know how you would do it. But I did enjoy a lot of the performances. And the story I was surprised I was kind of into. There were some questionable moments. I'm not going to say this is a perfect movie. Do I recommend it? Yes, it's entertaining. The movie entertained me. Whereas, only because I can refer to it the easiest, Batman versus Superman in my mind just didn't entertain me enough. This one actually entertained me. But again, it does have some issues. And maybe we should kind of get into talking a little bit about that without getting into spoilers. I think you touched on it. There are some editing issues. I thought the movie started out very, very interesting in its opening scenes and then kind of flopped a bit. I am finally getting to the point where you've been for a little bit. You're kind of worn out on Jennifer Lawrence's character. And I know we're going to talk a lot about a lot, but I was impressed with the kids that are coming on. I really like the new Nightcrawler kid, which I'm really glad about because he's one of my side favorites next to Gambit. I loved the fact that we had a Nightcrawler in the first series of X-Men, and then he just disappeared. It was a well done, in my mind, Nightcrawler, and he disappeared, and now we kind of got him back in kid form, and he seems very similar for X-Men in the 80s.
He captured a lot of Alan Cummings. And
that really did.
Amazing.
It was very cool. So definitely I give it a recommend as well. So Speedy G, what are some of the negative kind of things that you think may have happened in this movie that kind of keep us from giving it that really high mark?
Well, first of all, I'm not as hard on Lawrence as I was before, and I owe her a little bit of an apology. After watching it, I think everybody took the easy answer that she necessarily just mailed it in.
Right.
She may have a little bit, but I think it's partially that she didn't have anything to work with, and she was just fed up. She got nothing. And, for example, Magneto gets so much. Fassbender gets so much more to work with. McAvoy gets so much more to work with. I mean, they brought back, Moria, just to give him something to work with, because he really didn't have any other purpose in this movie.
Very true, but it did lead to some key moments.
It allowed him to have some more stuff.
Right.
She really didn't get much. you know, her lines were and again, she didn't deliver them very well, but that could be like a frustration of like, okay, this is what I got to get blue and I got to put all this shit on and this is what I'm going to have to work with. So I'm not as hard on her. I think I think Isaac did not do a good job. I think I didn't like the villain at all. The first part, like you said, that opening, I was on board with him. He was the bomb. Right. But then after that, as he starts putting together the Horsemen, and especially once he gets Magneto, he falls to be behind Magneto, and Magneto becomes the focal villain in my eyes. And all the meat is given him once again.
Yeah, we talked about this. We talked a little bit about this, about meat and which characters are getting it and which aren't. It almost seems like the kids got a good chunk, but Jennifer Lawrence was kind of left aside. And then later on in the film, some of our baddies were kind of left without anything to do or say. So that threw me off a little bit. I don't want to let's not get into the details of it.
Character development is a big problem with this movie. A lot of characters did not get developed. And he fell back on his tried and true actors and didn't develop everyone new. Because when they developed characters, I really liked this movie.
Right.
When they just shot by characters and then they didn't do anything with them, I started to fall out of, interest.
Completely agree. So they clearly went back to some old tricks, we'll say. We'll talk more about that in spoilers. Some old things that have already been done in other movies or topics or whatever. And then when they tried to bring something new to the forefront, there wasn't enough meat there. You're right. It did go from Apocalypse to another person as being the bad guy. That's kind of the bad end of the spectrum for this movie. That's for sure.
What do you think about this? I feel like this movie is stuck in the year 2000 or something. I feel like he made a movie that's not like the way they're making comic book movies now.
Right.
In other words, if he had made this movie 10 years ago, it would have been amazing. But the gravitas that they're putting in these new movies, like you said, that the whole conflict of Batman and Superman about Superman destroying a planet and can we trust him and he's an alien and this real thought-provoking thing. The Civil War, all the destruction these guys have created in this conflict, even though it wasn't as political as it is in the comic, it still was political. And then you have this really intense moment that, Tony's parents are killed. Where it's Civil War kind of still stuck with the old comic-y, let's go kill the bad guy and get Magneto to behave. You
mean Apocalypse?
Yeah, Apocalypse, excuse me.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, I think you're kind of on the right take. I just think the problem was, while you're right, I just think their thoughts, what they thought they were doing right was probably wrong. You're right. It seemed like they were looking at this from a pre-9/11 kind of situation, and they just went with what they thought. I think the writing was a little bit poor, like you said, or one-sided, or character-sided. I think the editing at points was really weird. I think we lost out on some stuff that we'll touch about in spoilers because we know there were some scenes shot that weren't used in the movie, and that's disappointing. There were some characters that are in this movie that weren't used, and that's what leads this movie from. This is what brings this all down. It's a cohesive. That part is what throws it all off. They had good story, good ideas. Poor execution. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just jointed. It's like watching a bunch of little cool YouTube videos. Like, ooh, that is awesome.
Here's a section.
Awesome.
Here's a section.
And then there's something that's very different, and then, ooh, that's awesome. You can pick out these awesome moments, but they don't flow very well.
Right. Totally agree, but we still do recommend this as a watch.
Yeah. That's the problem is it comes across like we're bagging it, but I had fun. I laughed. I enjoyed it. My daughter went with us, and she told me when she got out, she said, "I liked it, Dad. It was awesome."
Yep, this is one of those what I call popcorn movies. This is definitely you're not going to watch an Academy Award-winning film. You're going to sit back with your popcorn. You're going to have a good time. If you take your kids, they're going to like it. If you take your parents, they're probably going to like it, especially if they watch the first two. The first two prior. So very cool. Cool. All right. So I think we've kind of talked it up and we've kind of beat it up. Should we get into the down and dirty? You ready for that?
Let's get into some spoilers.
All right. This is the part of the podcast where we warn you all. We're going to give you a few seconds here to click away and maybe join us towards the end or rejoin us at a later date. But we are going to get heavily into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, which we're saying you should,
yes,
be aware we're going to give you spoilers here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, Speedy G.
Ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. All right, spoiler time. Let's get into this. Let's talk about, let's start on the bad note first and end on the highs. So let's start with the bad. Let's get into the detailed specifics of what you disliked about this particular movie, X-Men Apocalypse.
Character development, and specifically character development of new characters.
Our New Mutants?
Jennifer Lawrence is going.
Right.
McAvoy and Fassbender could be going. And even if they're not, we need to get away from the whole Magneto is the bad guy thing. You know, like I told you, it keeps happening. And we need to focus on these kids. And the sad part is we know they filmed it. There's commercials of them in the mall. There's all kinds of pictures of them in the mall. They supposedly were breakdancing. They were, you know, brain freeze jokes. There's all kinds of fun stuff.
Well, let's rewind that back here in a bit. In the movie itself, since we're into spoilers, in the movie itself, Summers, future Cyclops, young Cyclops, is kind of the rogue guy. He wants to go. He's like, hey, let's steal a car and go do something. He's like, well, what do? You go to the mall in the 80s. That's the place to be. So they take off, and that's it.
And then next thing you know, we see them coming back.
They're coming back. So we know there were scenes that were shot in a mall. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite parts, we'll talk about that here in a few moments on the good side, you know, there's a bit of that in there as well. But they missed an opportunity to tell us more about, it's Scott Summers, right? I want to make sure I'm saying it right. Scott Summers, about Jean Grey. Let's talk about the characters specifically instead of necessarily the people portraying them. But Nightcrawler, who I love.
And then poor Jubilee. That's where all her stuff was. They got chopped. You know,
Jubilee had nothing. She was just in her yellow coat and her big hooker hoop earrings.
Yeah, it's like the only reason they put her in is because she looks like she's from the 80s. And to say that they had an Asian actress in there, that's what I feel like. That was a total bait and switch. And I'm so angry because this is the third actress they cast as Jubilee. And once again, they did nothing with her. And I love that character. She is so beloved because she was a major character in the cartoon in the 90s. Yeah. And she's just, so maybe now she's going to be grown up.
Yeah.
So we're not going to get her as young Jubilee running around with Wolverine, which is one of the coolest things ever. You know, big old, like her dad is Wolverine, and she's this young kid.
Yep.
So I don't even want.
She's left as a background character. So that was the first thing. Let's talk about. I want to bring up the fact that our baddies in here, the Four Horsemen, who, if you don't already know from watching the trailer, are Angel, Storm, Magneto, and who's Psylocke. That's it.
Yeah, it's easy to forget her.
They started off. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. They started off kind of interestingly, at least somewhat interestingly, falling under the spell of Apocalypse himself, and then we didn't hear another damn word from him.
Okay.
They were instantly thrown into battle.
Storm was good.
Storm was good.
Out really good. And the whole story of her, like, the way she looked up to Mystique.
Right.
And she considered Mystique a role model and a hero.
Well,
and
a lot of people did.
So it was great.
Right.
And I thought, okay, we're going somewhere cool with Storm. And then after Magneto joined this group, pretty much, all Storm did was
look around.
Yeah. And like
make a storm.
Poses. And like she was. And she never spoke again until the very end of the movie when she talks to Quicksilver. And that was so disappointing. Then Angel starts out with that fight, shows how brutal and tough he is. He's fighting Nightcrawler in the cage.
They have him cage fighting.
Mm-hmm. And so his wings get damaged and he becomes a drunk. And, you know, that whole scene was hilarious. And he's listening to the Four Horsemen from Metallica when they find him. Awesome moment. You know,
he's clearly a punker.
Great. Once he got his powers, gone. And then, you know, I was saying before this in the non-spoilers, something happened that took me out of the movie and I never quite got back in it. It was his death. Okay.
Well, what we think is his death. Let's be clear.
Well, yeah, but I spent the whole rest of the movie waiting for them to show me that he wasn't dead. You know, he's one of my most. one of my favorite X-Men. And I finally, like you told me, you go, is he like that when he was drunk and listening to the music? And I go, no, but it's okay. He's kind of got some balls, and I'm liking that compared to the way they did before.
Right.
I was like, I'm kind of like it. And then, so I get excited they finally are giving me a decent Angel. And next thing you know, he's probably dead. And it jolted me out of the movie. And I couldn't quite ever get back into it because all I was waiting for, even through for the credit scene, I was hoping that it showed him alive.
Right.
That's what I was hoping for, because I just wanted to know he wasn't dead 100%. And then finally, poor Psylocke. I don't know what the hell happened there. I hate to say it, that she became TNA. And in a world now where that's not the way we do things, when we've just had a very strong Black Widow and we've introduced Wonder Woman as a strong female character, the TNA thing is, no, we don't do that anymore.
You know, that was probably my most disappointing part of the whole film. I was really looking forward to seeing her. I don't know a lot about her, but between you and the articles, I still don't. And between the articles I read and what little you filled me in on, I was so excited. And the sad part of all of it is that she was the most excited person in the world to be playing this character. And her, of all people, somebody who grew up reading these comics, somebody who knew this person's moves even, and we didn't see crap. We saw her with, you know what? It looked, was it a lightsaber? It looked like I know, but I was expecting something more different, like sparkly and crackly. I've seen comic book images of what she can do, and it just didn't seem like what I saw on screen. And it seemed really phony. It just reminded me of that, Attack of the Clones when Samuel L. Jackson's Mace Windu character whip out the purple saber right against Jango Fett's throat. And then the outfit was just to push her boobs out there, and I felt really bad.
Hey, you know what? I know it's comic book accurate, but this was the one time that you probably shouldn't have gone comic book accurate.
Exactly. Yes, thank you.
And I'm going to give the example of Scarlet Witch, okay? Scarlet Witch in the comics has an outfit that's also kind of like Psylocke's. It's pretty
very top-heavy.
Yeah. But, it was obvious that they looked and they said, we're not putting her in that. We're going to put her in some sort of pants, and we're going to, she's still going to look good and be sexy, but we're going to,
sophisticated.
Yeah. And
the comic book one, so.
And you didn't put anyone else in those kind of outfits. So since you didn't put anyone else into it, I don't get it. It's like the Mystique thing. The whole thing, I hate to switch topics really fast, but one of the things Jennifer Lawrence didn't like is her butt hanging out and being naked.
Right.
Okay. I've never quite 100% understood that one other in TNA, because Mystique doesn't go naked in the comics. Mystique's not naked. She has clothes.
Right.
Her clothes, she's able to when she morphs with her clothes. The way they've made her in the comics, though, in the movies, is she has to be naked to morph. So that's the biggest way to solve her being unhappy with her being in that crap. Then you only have to paint her face.
Right.
So yeah, I feel sorry for
those were some of the bad moments. Those that especially not Jennifer, but for Olivia Munn. Yeah. That's a shame.
She could have been Deadpool's girlfriend.
She passed up the part to be Deadpool's girlfriend in order to play this particular character who really didn't do much. She had a couple of cool moments, but again, they were just moments.
Wow.
That's a shame. It's a shame. Cool. All right. Well, what did we like about this movie, Speedy G?
Quicksilver. I liked him a lot. And I know a lot of people are like, well, it's over the top. It's kind of insane. And he's not really Quicksilver. And he's not. Quicksilver's not that fast. He's the Flash. Yeah. They made their own version of the Flash in this.
No, that was pretty amazing. Real quick, I want you to finish your thought, but I want to give it some background. So this was one of the things that we were talking about as far as recall. A lot of people are bagging on it. I'm kind of 50-50 with it. I know you enjoyed the moment. And what it is Xavier's School for Gifted Children is exploding. But prior to the explosion, Quicksilver rescues, I don't know, like 32 mutants who were in there, person by person, and there's another singled out moment where he gets to show his talent, but I'm talking micro fast this time. So again, go back to your thought. I apologize. I wanted to get some setup.
It made me laugh. The whole movie, he made me laugh. He was amazing. He did a good job of being fun and exciting, and I really like his scene when he decides to fight too. No one talks about that. Everyone's talking about the first scene when he's fighting Apocalypse and he's running fast and he's punching the crap out of him. That was awesome too.
Yeah, for a minute there, you thought that was going to be.
Yeah,
wow.
And then they catch him and break his leg. That was pretty cool. I guess my only complaint about that, and this is where I say again, it's these great moments. So you have this great moment. He saves all the kids. It's an amazing moment. And then just like that, where's Alex Summers? He's dead. So you go from all this like, woohoo, this is so awesome, to like a major character's dead. And that's what I mean, how the shifting of it is like, whoa, okay. How am I supposed to care about this death when I just saw this amazing scene of like dogs with pizza and this, all these crazy things that happen in Quicksilver. That did not make sense tonally, how they did that.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is Alex, right? Alex Summers? Alex Summers, who is Havoc. Apparently, Quicksilver did not get to him in time. He got everybody but him, and he is gone. And I get what they were trying to do, but you're absolutely right. I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to give the X-Men a reason to fight.
And also for us to see Scott go through something.
Go through a little bit of pain himself. Because being picked on as a kid before he realized his powers wasn't enough. We just had to throw it over the top. That's what I didn't get. Being bullied before he even could, and using his powers and almost killing a kid wasn't scary enough. They had to take away his brother at the same time, who was a good character, unless maybe he just didn't want to do it.
I have a theory on that. We'll say at the end when we see what's coming next. I don't believe he's dead. But.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but that's what you're left with. The average person thinks that he is. What are some other good parts? Because I think we're going back to the bad stuff.
Yeah, well, you can't help it. Some other good parts. Fassbender's Magneto was pretty good. I mean, I'm not so sure about the killing his family part. I think they went.
Not going to the bad. We're going to leave the bad.
But
McAvoy was also really good. He had some cute moments with Moira.
Just.
I know what I want to talk about. Go for it,
because I can't think of any.
Well, being a Star Wars fan, our new X-Men heroes as kids are actually walking out of Return of the Jedi. And they're having a discussion about how usually the third movie is the worst and how one of them liked it and one of them didn't. So there was a nice little Star Wars moment in there, which I enjoyed very much, coming out of the theater. I also thought it was cool to see, while you might want to laugh, Nightcrawler was wearing a Thriller jacket.
Because he was breakdancing in the scene they cut out.
He was breakdancing in the scene cut out, but it's the 80s. There were several people that I knew, unfortunately, at my high school who was wearing a freaking Thriller jacket. Let's see, what are some good moments? There were some good, decent scenes. The fight scenes were okay. I'm not sure everyone got their time. What do you think about that?
Fight scenes were okay. They could have been better.
Could have been.
Again, the biggest problem with this movie is the ending. There is no doubt about it. I don't really know what Apocalypse is doing until the very end. Fassbender, what are their goals? Like, Fassbender's just standing there going, and all kinds of particles are flying around him for like 15 minutes. 15, 20 minutes. He's not doing anything. And then Jennifer Lawrence comes up to him and says, think about it. And then he has a like, oh, I guess you're right. I shouldn't be doing this. I don't know, that ending was just so
he's tearing up. He's tearing apart the Earth from the inside, from its core.
But for how long was he doing it? He was doing it for like 20 minutes.
It wasn't just because he's not that. I don't think he's that powerful to make it happen like in the first 15 minutes. And then the other thing is, you also have to remember too that there was, I'm not saying this was okay. I'm just saying that I'm trying to justify the moment. Quicksilver there was with the implication, without actually saying, that's my dad. You have a family you should be fighting for, kind of thing. And I'm glad he didn't say anything, which made it actually a good moment.
Yeah, if he had said it, it would have been Cheese City.
Yeah. Oh, cheese puff city. That's for damn sure. But no, there were a lot of other good moments in this movie. It was great. The kids were good.
The Phoenix moment was cool.
The Phoenix Force was really awesome.
But I wish they hadn't done it yet. This is just a kind of a complaint with Singer in general. We'll get into Mike Singer complaints later, but he shouldn't have done it yet. But it looked cool.
Right.
Again, there was a lot of cool visual things, but when I think of it as a story, it didn't quite. I don't think they should have done that.
Like I said, I think it's right there. It's right down the middle. It's on the 50-yard line, and it isn't going any further, and it isn't going back anymore. So I think that's kind of where they locked it up. It's right there down the middle. A lot of problems, but a lot of entertainment at least, which made it worth the watch in my mind. Any final thoughts you want to talk about, good or bad, about the
well,
movie?
Before I'm gonna have my Singerism complaints, but you forgot one major moment.
Oh yeah, bring it up.
We forgot about Wolverine. That's a big moment that Wolverine. Now, the moment itself again was great, but was that moment put in at the expense of what we lost at the beginning of the movie, or some more character development for other characters? You have to wonder that. But it was great. It was great to see him go berserker. Not too thrilled with the fucking introduction. She's all, it's an animal. It's something wild. It's a weapon. Banging us over the head. Yes, it's goddamn Wolverine.
Well, see, for me, I thought this is where I love these moments where you and I are going to disagree. I actually thought it was perfect. I don't care if they thought about it at the last minute. I don't care if they thought about it from the beginning. This is a part of Wolverine that I've been dying to actually see. The headgear on his head from being turned into Weapon X. You could hear him in his little cage sniffing and snorting, going. He was trying to, that's what Wolverine is, that true animalistic berserker rage. And whether it belonged to this movie or not, as a movie buff and a Wolverine fan, I was happy to see it. I also thought, and you and I touched on this, I don't think you agree with me too much, but I still see there's a moment with him and Jean Grey here where they make a small connection, which I think leads to something more. And if you know the comics, and you know the storyline, even in the movies, Wolverine has a very passionate love for Jean Grey that never ever dies. Even as
creepy, dude.
It did look creepy because Jean Grey.
Because there is too much of an age difference between those actors.
Right.
So it came across a little creepy.
All she did was tell him to remember. I didn't think it was.
Yeah, but creepy. That not that long from now they're going to be.
But he don't age. You can't blame him. I'm sorry. I'm not seeing it, bro.
It looked creepy.
Listen, I just heard on the radio today there's some 60-year-old rock star about to have twins, and his wife is 32. I don't want to hear it. What else you got for us, PDG?
Yeah, that was creepy.
You want to get into your Singer stuff now? Let's get it on.
Yeah, I'm glad he's leaving the series because this series needs fresh eyes, and some of my complaints that I've had from the beginning of the series, I think, still remain. I want to go back to the Jennifer Lawrence thing, and I think of Halle Berry and how disgruntled she became with this series, and I still stand by my thing that I've told you for years, and I've said a lot. I don't believe the guy knows how to write and direct and tell a story from a female point of view. I just don't think he gives the women anything to work with, and they get frustrated, and they get disgruntled, and they leave. Because there's too many good female characters in the X-Men, and they don't get what they need to get. And so I'm not ready to throw Jennifer Lawrence under the bus. I wish someone else had come in and given her a little more. She's too good of an actress, and I don't think it's all on her. And so I'm going to put some of that on Singer and his writing team because it's been consistent since the first X-Men. They haven't really given the girls something to work with.
Right.
Number two, I don't believe Fox has a lot of foresight with these movies. I don't think they think about the next movie and the next movie and the next movie the way Marvel and DC are now. Some of their casting choices, the way they cast characters aside, like, whoop, there's always more X-Men, throw this one away. You know, on Days of Future Past, my complaints is like Bishop said 2 words, chucked him to the side. Sunspot kind of came and went. Blink came and went. You know, Asian actress. It's very popular in Asia, but you know what? If you make that your Blink, then she's probably not going to get meaty roles. So again, I felt he did this the same way. He cast Angel aside. He cast Jubilee aside. He cast Psylocke aside. As much as I like Storm, I was asking you this question this earlier today. Could that young lady lead a solo movie? Can you see Fox saying, okay, we're going to throw down this budget to make a Storm movie with her as our main actress and the one on the poster?
Could she do it? Could she do it after this one? No. Could she do 2 more X-Men movies, or even put some other movies of other stuff under her belt?
Then maybe.
Yes, then maybe. I thought she did a good enough job where she could hold her own eventually with some more experience, a little bit more.
Is your most bankable female X-Men to have a solo movie? So basically, you're telling me that we are 4 or 5 movies away before we have a solo female X-Men movie.
Right.
See, that's where I get frustrated. Marvel would not have done that. Marvel would have cast somebody important. I look at that Spider-Man movie, for example, and nobody has said what Zendaya really is, what her character is. She is an up-and-coming young star, and they didn't put her in there just for one little thing. She is in there for more reason than that. And I'm telling you, she's going to end up being something more important. Yeah. And that's the way Marvel thinks. And DC thinks that way too. They cast really good actors, and they think of it in a way like, okay, if this one gets successful, we can make a movie with this actor. And I don't think X-Men do that, and it's unfortunate, you know. They just, so we know the next movie is going to be a Jean Grey movie because that's your most bankable young actress in the whole series. She's the one. And then the guy playing Cyclops. So they're going to be the ones. So we're going to get the Fox. And that's where I went with the Phoenix thing. I would have liked, can we wait before we ruin Jean Grey's life? Can we have some happy Jean Grey for a while? She was on the team for a long time before everything went to shit. Let's have some happy Jean Grey. And then we'll let it go to shit.
I think we're okay there. I think we're not going to see it for a while. I think it's going to be something that they wanted her to release because of the threat they were under. Yeah. But they're going to have to come up with something else.
Well, in the comics, it's Magneto that defeats Apocalypse. They have a big throwdown at the end. So,
yeah, crazy.
I don't know.
Cool. All right, man. Well, you got anything else that you think you want to mention? I think we've kind of touched on everything.
I'm just excited to see where it's going because they're going to have new directors. That little thing at the end, we didn't talk about it. That's a Mr. Sinister reference.
Yep.
Now, that was the most vague reference. If you don't know anything about comics, there's no way in hell you were going to get that, man. It just isn't happening. But I think that's where I say Alex Summers is still alive because Mr. Sinister has a obsession with the Summers family. So I could see him doing something with Summers, like somehow turning him into some kind of clone or something. I just really think he's going to somehow be. And I'm praying he's also, maybe he'll get Angel and do something with Angel. That's my hope, at least.
Well, I think you're safe there. That would be my first choice. I think if he's going to save somebody or do something, that might be the way to go.
But who knows? You know, really fast, one other problem with these movies, I don't like the fact that it's jumping to the 90s 10 years later next. Because let's do a little quick math. Okay, for example, Scott's brother, Alex, if you jump from First Class to this movie, he should be almost 40.
Yeah, but everything was changed.
No, just regular time.
No, okay. Everything was
18. He's 18 in First Class. No, he didn't change time. We're talking about Alex. We're not talking about Scott.
No, I'm not saying he changed time.
We're talking about Jennifer Lawrence, too. Jennifer Lawrence should be almost 45.
Right. Here, hang on a second. Let's try to set this straight real quick because we're going to get off on a tangent. It's going to take up time, and we're going to go over. Days of Future Past, and I thought about this before, and this was brought up in an article I read earlier, actually pulled a Star Trek. So in that movie, when Wolverine finally goes back and catches up with everything else, everything that happened prior never happened. Do you understand? So now they can kind of make them closer in age.
Said 10 years have passed in between all those 3 movies. 10 years passed in between, and then 10 years passed between the time that, I mean, it's been 10 years. So, you know, the one with the greatest mutant powers is the Summers mom and dad. They look really good for having a 40-year-old kid.
Yeah,
there's some age issues there, and they're going to jump, and supposedly they're going to jump 10 years ahead for the 90s movie.
So that means we'll see.
Gene's going to be 26, and Scott's going to be 26, and you know they're all going to be old.
I think it's a matter of makeup and hair, man. It's not that difficult to do.
Why do we have to?
No prosthetic. That doesn't even have. I'm just saying.
Turn around and make another movie as them as kids. That's what I want.
It's hair, dude. It's just hair.
No,
it's just hair.
It's a different story. It's like Spider-Man.
I don't think you're going to get them as kids. I don't think you're going to get them as kids.
Spider-Man, 24 years old.
They're going to be older themselves, too, when they get around to even starting to make this movie.
Well, yeah, I'm okay with them being 2 years older, but not 10.
But again, it's not that difficult to make happen. It's not that they're going to put gray wigs on them, dude, and sit there and add prosthetics and make their faces saggy. And I think we'll be okay. I'm hoping we'll be okay. So, who knows? Anyway, cool. All right, it sounds like we're about to ready to wrap things up. What do you say?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, let's shut her down. I think this is good. It's been a great review. I think we've touched on a lot of topics, and we've kind of gone back and forth on some things, but we do recommend it, although there are some issues, so expect those if you go out and check it out. All right, Speedy G, it's been another good one. Why don't you send us off?
Goodbye. Go watch X-Men. Have a good time. Eat some popcorn.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Speedy G is absolutely right. Relax. Stay out of the rain if you're over there on that side of the coast. Stay out of the heat if you're on our side of the coast. Watch a movie. Eat some popcorn. Uh-oh, something. I see his face. Go ahead. Hit it.
Comic-Con, Phoenix this weekend. If you're going to the Phoenix Comic-Con, I'm going to be there Saturday. If you recognize me or something, come say hi. Yeah,
that's right.
Really excited.
Comic-Con. I was set to be there, but my lovely daughter has other plans. Her and her softball team will be elsewhere. So I will be sad to miss it, but there's always next year for sure. Check out Speedy G at Phoenix Comic-Con. If you're in the Arizona area and plan on being there, say hi. Don't be afraid. Look for him. He'll be there. I think you going with the girls?
Yeah.
For sure. Definitely. Look for him. Say hi. Let him know who you are. Tell him what you think of the show. Tell him everything. Just bombard him full of. Make him feel uncomfortable is what I'm telling you people to do. Anyway, all right. Time to say goodnight. I'm going to say goodnight. As always, be your own hero. Thanks again for joining us here on the Real Comics Podcast. We will see you again soon. Woohoo! Night, everybody.
Good night.